friends. This is a program about Crimean Tatar cuisine, and I am Rustem Dervish. We welcome you with pleasure. Why with pleasure? Because today we will talk about very pleasant things. Well, as for me, today we will talk about the coffee ceremony and about coffee, about tradition, about cooking, about the rules of preparation, about the rules for serving, not only about coffee, but also about what was served, what sweets were prepared. We went down to the workshop for a reason, because this workshop is a reconstruction of a coppersmith's workshop in the city of Bakhkizere. We even have photographs of our blacksmiths who worked in Bakhkizere. These are the 20s of the last 100th anniversary. Well, we are working here today, and people come to us, and we hold a master class here. Here is my dish on the shelf. I have been collecting these dishes for many years. In general, everything related to coffee and how it was prepared, how they drank it. And there are some very old things here. These are all things of the last century. For example, this one of the first ones appeared in my collection. Look at his beautiful form. Here is a small one, and here is a large one. But if they cooked, let's say, in such a large one, then, of course, they didn't take it out of the hearth, didn't put it on the table, but poured it. Yes. Here is such a form. Today there are already master physicians who, based on this information, looking at these old objects, work and make copper utensils exactly like this or in this direction in this style. Well, I do too. I am one of the masters. It means that I have everything in my hands that I can't take this exact copy. We have Ali Umarov. He makes today, repeats the technology, the shapes, and the sizes. All this is exactly a copy of the vintage crockery, copper. That is, we take the things we know for sure that they were exactly the same 100 years ago. It is absolutely authentic all in the sizes and technology. I will note again. These are my products, but I also try to stick to them. We study all this, we do not just do it. That is, today we have the opportunity not to stop, we do not interrupt this tradition. We have now met with old dishes, with new masters. And now we will go to the kitchen, and there we would already prepare coffee. I will talk about how coffee is prepared, how we prepare it today, and what pastries were prepared for the coffee ceremony. We are in our beautiful kitchen. Today we will make cookies. Cookies, which were always with coffee, were served at the table. This cookie is called boynuz. When we say boynuz, we are so used to this cookie and this word that we don't even think about why we call it that. In translation, this is horns. This is a large symbolic part of Turkic culture. What are horns in Turkic culture? So the Turks are livestock breeders. And wealth was calculated by the number of animals in the herd. The more, the naturally, and richer. Here I am for a reason. This is an old towel here lies. Woven, this is a very ancient ornament. In the center of any Turkic ornament lies a circle or a rhombus with a dot in the middle, and around we see horns. We just don't pay attention to it. We are so used to it. And the horns are like a symbol of wealth, prosperity. A very serious thing in culture, everywhere in ornaments. These are the main things we can observe. And when they cook this cookie, they also cook it in the shape of a horn. It's called boynuz. In addition to the fact that this is a very ancient history, it is also very tasty. In order to cook today, we need flour, nuts, This is powdered sugar, sour cream, 200 grams, sugar, salt and honey. We need honey for nuts. We then move the filling with honey. So we have flour. Look, it's still interesting wherever there are Turks. There's always flour and a lot of butter, a lot of fat. There is such a subtlety with butter. We must cool this butter well. Cool it well, and we will switch to graters. It needs to be rolled in flour. So, we have how many 400 grams of flour for the largest. In short, the whole thing must be done as quickly as possible under our conditions. Because the oil is chilled, of course. But this is butter. It quickly begins to melt. And we need the oil to retain its volume, not to turn into a liquid. We need it to be solid. So now we go further with sour cream 200 grams. Fatty sour cream and also butter, so that it is not tasty. You need to try. That's it. That's how we put it in the refrigerator now. Just like that in the freezer, and I'll put it for an hour. It will cease. And then we'll go on, we will work with him. While the dough is in the refrigerator, we will prepare the filling. Well, the simplest stuffing is nuts, sugar, honey. This means that in order to distinguish nuts in the old way, as before, we will chop them with a rolling pin. No modern gadgets. And in order for them to break well, we have a little of them. Suddenly they are wet. We will heat a little on the fire. Things have gone. Again, we use our dishes, copper dishes. Why is copper better than steel or something else? Because copper instantly heats up and instantly cools down. This gives us the opportunity to very accurately regulate the temperature. So, we fried it a little. It personally removes moisture from the nuts and changes a little for the better. So, now we take our rolling pin. And now he is completely calm. Lends itself to our well, it's okay. If there remains, we will then eat this filling separately. It's also very tasty. Because what happens a lot there, a little bit of sugar was added mainly by honey, so that this filling would keep its shape. Because when we pour inside, when you turn it, it must keep its shape. This is the filling so that it does not crumble. It's a pleasure to mix nuts with honey. And it's also necessary in some regions of the Crimea, but not everywhere. But there are a lot of people, and today almost everyone drinks coffee. There is cream. And we also have cream, as it were, from raw milk. That is, the raw milk collected is cream. And here we specially boil milk and specially worked with it at a time when the milk is on fire. It is milk. We raise, lower, mix with a ladle. We create foam all the time. And this foam should solidify here. The oil rises, develops in this way, and such a thick layer is obtained. All the filling is ready. The dough will be ready in 50 minutes. Now we have time. Now we need to prepare this sour cream. That is, we will now take milk. Whole milk is not in the store, but we specially bought fresh milk. And now we will cook it and make sour cream. This milk is already on fire with us. Now it is starting to rise. And at this moment, we need to beat it to increase the thickness of the foam. And so, slowly enrich the milk with oxygen, and the foam will then turn out to be magnificent, as this oxygen cocktail happens. This is how milk was churned. And in my hands is a mixer. It's just a coffee ceremony. Drink coffee. And how much did the hostess prepare for this action? Well, it all depended on the importance. The importance of the guests. If for a wedding this is one thing, suppose the guests are from afar. This is another, and coffee was called differently. If it's just coffee, there's just coffee. If, suppose something good happened, some kind of event needed to be celebrated, then it is. Well, happy coffee. I do not know how to translate it correctly. They made coffee to a person who brought joyful good news. If a girl was given in marriage, then there was such a tough tradition. There in the morning, of course, the first morning, when she was already in the new house, all the relatives, the closest ones, came to visit early in the morning, and the bride was already cooking in the new house. Coffee. This coffee was called coffee brides. That is, everywhere, no matter what event happens in the house, or there is a big holiday, or some kind of family holiday, but not a single event could do without coffee, the cup in which we are, in which I am doing it now, as far as I remember myself. So many it was in our family, and in every family there was a special cup for milk, and only for milk. For boiling milk. I don't remember any other dishes in our house. So we set the oven to a temperature of 220 and the heating elements. Both above and below will heat up everything. Now we start working with the dough, and during this time the oven should heat up. We need it to be directly hot, because we have to put our products there. They should instantly seize. Let's get our dough. All it is to cool, as we need. It is to cool for what? To keep oil from leaking. While we are working with him. A little bit in the dough, that is, flour. I myself started talking here. Like this into 3 parts. That's what it's there for, to use it. When we cut the dough, it is very convenient for it to cut. Now our filling has come. That's when I said why honey is needed. That's why it is needed, so that it keeps its shape like that. It will turn out real big. The larger the horn, the happier the owner. Prosperity was determined by the number of animals. Animals were slaughtered, horns remained. They were not thrown away, but hung on at home or somewhere, but not thrown out. So there's a lot here. No, it's normal. We're wrapping everything up now, and we'll use my frying pan again, absolutely. So it will be necessary to lubricate it with oil. I will do so. Coppersmiths usually do this, just like that. A little bit now it will melt. I will pour it into a thin layer. You don't need to heat it up much. Yes. Look, we wrap it as thin as possible, so tight, tight, tight. And at the last moment we make such a beautiful movement. We wrap it. This thing here is called boynuz. We wrap it up so neatly and very tightly, very tightly. This is the shape. The tail remains at the bottom. We wrap it up like this at the end, insert it and begin to fold it beautifully. Everything in the oven. Time is gone. Let's lay it down here. All. Now look, it is very important that the temperature is high and the oven is ready. That is, we are immediately hot and the dough should quickly grab, solid, until the butter is melted. This is very important. And so we remove the temperature. Great, great. Well, for my taste, I've never done better. So let's leave it all. Now let's deal with the oven. Oh, great, great. What you need does not stick at all. Pay attention to how this traditional dish of ours works. Now let it stand for 10 minutes, cool down a little. And during this time we then put it here beautifully. And during this time we just have everything ready. We will now move on to the most basic. Here is a coffee grinder made with this duck. I already told you about the duck. This is a traditional pen. It is here inside we have a unique coffee from the island of Java on the south side of the island. And today we have such an opportunity for a modern person. Just go to the store and buy. Well, I guess it's always been like that. Crimea stands at the crossroads of these world roads, trade routes. And everything has always been in Crimea. The first products, the best quality, were received by the residents of Crimea. By the way, a hand mill. Everyone has already forgotten, but sometimes coffee comes to visit someone. You carry grain coffee with you. And people say, oh, but we don't have a mill. And it must be, because the traditional Crimean coffee ceremony just begins with this. People come, sit down, coffee is put on, a variety is selected, a mill remains, it starts to spin. While all this is being prepared, there is time to talk. Everyone knows that coffee appeared officially. It is believed that in 850 AD, the 8th century, coffee appears in the Caucasus, along with the Arabs, comes to the Caucasus, respectively, in the Crimea and in the Crimea. So, we had big ports at that time. There was a big city, a city Kaffa. When the Turks, the Turkish fleet captures the coast, the Crimean coast, including the richest port of Corfu. It is in this year that coffee houses appear. the most beautiful part, now we start decorating. We now have to beautifully cover them with a layer of sugar and put dishes specially created for this. Here in such a dish, here we have such a famous boynuz. This is an absolutely traditional pastry that was served with coffee. Remember how conveniently covered, and that's it. Now it is waiting in the wings. Here is such an estimate. It stood with us for about 30 minutes. In general, you put it more can stand. That's how he froze. This foam, which we have worked with beautifully, now we will collect it. Here. And if I give her even more I stay, then she will be removed in a straight layer. But we don't need that today. We are with them in such portions along with milk. We grind coffee and start brewing. Usually this one is our middle cup for 1 cup, which is 500 grams. Such a spoon is placed. Such a spoon is placed. It is a full spoon. Here it is for 2 cups of 150 milliliters. Well, plus coffee takes up a little more volume, but I do it for myself. We pour water, a little above the waist and everything on fire. So, look, the right dzhezva. It must be made of thick copper, thin copper. There is a very thin bottom customizes. Right now, this beautiful foam will form in this upper compartment of our dzhezva, and it kind of closes the drink inside. And there he languishes. Our fire is not very big. The fire should not be larger than dzhezva. Just think of the 100th anniversary. This construction was formed just to brew a cup of coffee. When the foam has risen, we just pour it at this moment. And pay attention to how dense it is. Beautiful. Like a cream. And it tastes like that. That's how long she'll stay. Pour water, of course, and then coffee is served. We go to the table. I cooked for myself. But what can you do for the sake of art? Look, we set the table so beautifully. This is not an exaggeration at all. Today I got great pleasure because I did what I like. So, we set the table beautiful dishes and delicious treats. The man sat down, set the table. Quickly, everything was always ready at home, which was delicious. They put everything on the table while coffee was being brewed, while they found out how he lives, how his children, how his wife. Look how convenient it is when the dishes are with a lid. Yevgeny Markov writes, it was 1872. He writes that the guests have pears in the garden and coffee in the hut for the Crimean Tatar, inevitably duties and first pleasure. He writes, sweet water, I drink black coffee, but today we must definitely show and not forget those people who drink coffee with cream. Here it is 90%. No, I'm lying. Probably 50% of people drink coffee like this. We won't offend anyone. That is, it is specially prepared for this. Especially for this ceremony, a piece of sugar was prepared. They take sugar, mix it with milk. It is specially brewed. I put sugar in my coffee. Sometimes you can add another nut to the sugar. I guess it's called lucky. Well, of course it's delicious. And then coffee with butter is sure to be served at the table. This is ours, what I have been doing for a long time today, how I showed you how it is done. Boynuz. Is generally very tasty. It could not be otherwise, because I didn't come up with anything here, neither subtract nor add. Absolutely traditional thing. Creamer and boynuz. It's an integral part of each other. Absolutely traditional thing for our culture. This is how the guests were greeted. People spent time. It's so simple and unpretentious. We did great today. Uniquely delicious pastries. Boynuz. Not bagels. Not fingers. This is boynuz. You have to be proud of your culture. Uniquely delicious coffee brewed in the right pot. To health.